Hey guys, welcome to Cars and Health Bars. On today's episode, we have with us Matt Rogers, owner, tuner of MCR Tuning. How are you doing, Matt?
Pretty good. How are you, Josh? And Morgan?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
It's been a hot day. We've been busy over here, per usual. So,
Yeah,
just ready for the afternoon.
yeah. Well, I guess we could just get straight into it with what you said about it being hot and busy. Is there usually like a time of year that you guys are most busy? Because I know a lot of times, well, especially I just visited John Craighead, got my transmission done. He says, of course, drag season is whenever he sees heat of his business because, of course, guys are breaking stuff on the track. But also, the winter months are pretty hectic too because guys are holding off until season's over with.
Yeah, so with us being kind of diversified, where we're not just doing drag cars and we're not just doing street cars and we're not just doing road race cars, we're kind of doing all of them. It's really just touch and go. But since COVID, prior to COVID, it was like summer, you're busy, 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 busy. Then, winter comes along and you're still pretty busy, but you've got enough time to do like longer projects. That dynamic has changed a lot since, 2019, 2020. It's definitely like, you'll have 4 or 5 months of being super busy and then like 2 months of, oh boy, we need to find some more work, and then all of a sudden it just piles on again. So it's definitely a different environment than what I noticed in the past, being in the industry as long as I have. So yeah, and there's not really a slow time. It's just you get little periods of slow time. But I mean, the winter is usually when we try to do anything that's a huge job. We try to get that done in the winter. It doesn't always work out that way, especially with the supply chain issues that we're still dealing with today. But wintertime, that's a nice, easy going time in my opinion. Summer kind of gets hectic around here.
Yeah. So I do see that you have a lot of cars that like you said, do kind of sit around. Would you say you're what you look for is the quick turnover work? The tune, the cam head tune, full bolt-on builds, or the builds that are like, here's my money, make my car fast.
That's kind of that's a hard question to answer, but really the way it is for me is, yes, obviously from a business standpoint, I want to have jobs coming here that we can finish pretty quickly, get cash flow coming in the door, especially with tuning. I really like doing a lot of tunes. It's really great cash flow. But at the same time, I get bored too, and I think everybody that works here gets bored doing like, not to say this is bad or anything, but just like the cookie cutter heads cam, that gets really old. So sometimes, depending on how I'm feeling, for me, this is still really like a passionate, artistic type thing. If I'm bored and I want to do something crazy, then I'll take on a crazy job. But it really just depends on how the money situation is here. Like, if we need to do some quick turnaround type stuff, and that's what I'll focus on booking. But we got a really great fabricator, just a generally good technician here named Taylor, and he's really good with stuff like that. So anytime that we get a chance to do something really crazy or artistic, I always think like, would Taylor enjoy doing this? And Jordan's picking up on some of that stuff too. So we definitely like doing the bigger, more like different type jobs. Like right in front of me right now, I know nobody can see it, there's a LS3 swapped H1 Hummer. I'm really excited about this job and how it's going to turn out. So I like doing crazier stuff like that instead of just doing but from a business standpoint, obviously, if you want to get into this business and you're going to start a shop, if you really are just worried about the money aspect of things, then yeah, tuning, cam installs, exhaust installs, quick and easy stuff, that's where you're going to make your money at. But if money isn't the number one thing,
may not make as big a name just doing that either if
yeah,
you think about it.
Exactly. I think like one of the biggest things that we've gotten notoriety off of, and you may touch on this later, I'm sure you will, is that twin turbo Ferrari that we did back in 2018. So stuff like that gets get your name out there and kind of get you some cred, but doesn't necessarily pay the bills either. So
Yeah. With you, I came into you by a mutual friend of ours at the time was always like, man, this is the like best guy with LSs around. That doesn't get any better than that. And it's kind of cool to see you kind of start to dip your toes in the water of Mopar and Ford, starting to do that tuning and installs. It's like you said, it's nice to try different things, and it's nice to see that you are not just focusing on GM products. You're also going into the Mopar and Ford market.
yeah, absolutely, and I get excited about that too. Like all day today, I've been tuning a Dodge truck, and it's challenging. It's not the same. It's challenging because it is on a Dodge, control strategy. They have the neural network and everything like that. So that's fun and challenging, and you do get a little monotonous, like I said, tuning the same Chevy setup,
Yeah.
BTR, Truck Norris, Truck Cam, and headers. Which once again, not knocking anybody that does that. It's a great setup, but just for us here personally, that kind of does get bored. So yeah, I'm happy about getting into the Ford and Mopar stuff. I think the Ford stuff, we probably won't ever break into that as much as I would like to, just because we have built such a big name on Chevy. But there's really the Mopar guys don't have really anyone in this area. I know of 2 or 3 pretty decent Mopar shops. There's one up north called OST Dyno. They're really good, and that's all they do. But in this general area, Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, the little area that we service, there's really not a whole lot of Mopar stuff going on. So I do get a lot of inquiry about that, and I am enjoying doing it. So they make good power. They're nowhere near Dodge guys. They're nowhere near the potential of
Gen 5.
Yeah, like Gen 5 or Gen 4 LS and Gen 5 LT or even the Coyote. But you put a blower on anything, it's going to make power. So the Hellcat stuff is obviously pretty awesome.
Yeah. I kind of want to touch on the LS side of things, just as a basic kind of talking point. How long have you been tuning on LSs? Because I know I met you in 2017, and I was told by my friend that you had been doing it far before then.
No, not at all, actually.
Oh, wow.
So my career started in imports. Mostly dealt with Honda tuning, Toyota tuning, Nissan tuning, a lot of standalone stuff like Haltech. There's a ton of standalones on the market. People use Hondata,
Yeah.
ECU Link, all that stuff. So that's kind of what I cut my teeth on. And that was really just how it happened, because when I got into cars, when I was 15, I lived in a small town. We're all from the same small town. You guys know how it is.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot going on with anything. But, when I got into cars, I came out of the Fast and Furious era, watched Fast and Furious 1, Fast and Furious 2, and then I think Tokyo Drift came out on my 14th or 15th birthday or something like that. And so, to me, fast cars, just from what I had been exposed to, my parents aren't into cars or anything, so what I had been exposed to was the import scene, so that's what I got into. Worked in that for a while, and then came back to Kentucky and wanted to start tuning. And actually, when I opened MCR Tuning, we had pretty low, and we didn't really expect to be building a lot of cars. I really just wanted to tune and maybe have one technician and maybe build a car here and there. And I didn't set out to just tune LS cars. It just kind of happened that way. I'd had a little bit of experience in tuning LS cars, and then just the hordes of people started coming in wanting me to tune LS cars, and I just rapidly learned, how to tune LS cars. I still learn every day. Every time I hook up to a car, I learn something new, tuning-wise. And anybody that doesn't, any tuner that says that they don't learn something new, I feel bad for them. So
You're in a pretty unique spot, being right here, conveniently 20, 30 minutes from NCM. You're hitting all these vet guys.
For sure. And we had a lot of luck in that field. One of my really good friends was the general manager at National Corvette Museum Motorsports Park, NCM Motorsports Park. And so, obviously he was around a lot of road race Corvettes, and we had been building our name about 3 years before I became friends with him. We had been building our name in the LS market. And been doing really good organically, just on our own that way. But kind of when me and him became friends and he started really pushing my name, that's when it really, stepped up, and we kind of became the Corvette shop that we're known for today.
Yeah.
So,
I guess with that being said, have you guys dabbled in any C8s yet? Has anybody broken into them yet? What's the update on them?
yeah, so no, we haven't done a whole lot of C8 stuff here at all yet. I expect within the next couple of years, once warranties start wearing out and the prices on the cars even out right now, they're crazy. It's not really obtainable for our average customer, our demographic. We've got a few guys that could afford them and then afford to also modify them. But not a whole lot. It's just really not, we don't have that demographic, so we haven't done a whole lot of C8 stuff, but I expect to see it coming. As far as tunability, prior to 2 weeks ago, your only option was to kind of rig in there. You'd piggyback one module in that does the MAF curve, and then a couple other things like meth injection to take care of fueling.
Mm-hmm.
But you still couldn't do anything with the transmission, which caused a lot of issues. Most of the time, it's going to have some kind of error on the dash. May not shift automatically, may only paddle shift. And a lot of guys that are spending that kind of money on that car that didn't buy it just to make a race car out of it, they don't want to deal with that. But anyway, so HP Tuners recently released their Global B unlock, and you just it's kind of like with the GM TCMs, the newer GM TCMs and the newer Dodge PCMs and stuff. You got to send them in. to HP Tuners or someone who provides that service for HP Tuners. They do a hardware unlock. It's a physical procedure.
Mm-hmm.
Send it back to you. So that's, I think, like $1,600.
Oh.
And then you've got your credits, which I believe it's going to take 10 credits. So it's $50 a credit. And then that's on top of whatever it is the tuner charges you. I don't have a price for that yet. I have an idea of what I will charge, but until I do a few of them, I'm not going to have like a solid price on it. But it's going to be up there just because of the risk that you're taking on with that kind of transmission and whatnot.
Yeah, that's something that I'm sure not a lot of people consider whenever they're looking into purchasing dyno tuning, is that you, the tuner, have to purchase these credits. You're not just able to plug into the PCM and have everything right in front of you, you know. Yeah,
I've noticed in the past like 2 or 3 years that's becoming more common knowledge. You know, prior to a couple years ago, most people would, if somebody did have an issue with the price of tuning, I explained to them, hey, listen, it's costing me, $100, $200, $400 just to get in to be able to modify your tune-up. And then from there, that's my time, my fee.
Yeah.
But for sure, a lot of people don't realize that, but it is becoming more common knowledge. Like, I'll tell customers, well, they'll be like, I'll be like, hey, it's this much, and here's why it's this much. Oh, yeah, I knew about the credits or stuff like that. So it's becoming a thing. But, yeah, a lot of people still don't know that a lot of our tuning fee there is immediately just like right off the top is credits just for us to be able to get into your computer. So
yeah,
I would say a lot of people don't consider their car's condition before taking it to the tuner either. You got leaks, fuel leaks, coolant leaks,
high miles even.
Transmission issues maybe, like you might know about.
Yeah, that's a huge.
That could be a whole episode.
That could be a whole episode of what not to do
to your tuner,
or to your car before you take it to the tuner. Like the joke in the industry amongst tuners is like it just needs a tune in quotations.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just like what I tell my customers here along that lines is, as long as it's not pouring some sort of fluid onto my floor, a little drip here and there is okay. I really don't like it if it's coolant. That's definitely not good. If it's oil, all right, depending on where it's at, maybe just a little drip. But we've had people bring stuff in here like with literally no water in it, and we go to put water in it, and it starts pouring out on the floor. And I've had guys bring vehicles here with no driver's seat in them, and they put a bucket there, and they're like, "Can you tune it?" I've seen it all, dude. Like Jordan said, you could literally make an entire episode out of just the absolute, lack of care. Is what I like to say, just audacity, whatever you want to call it. Just that we can make an episode about what people do, what people consider tunable vehicles.
Yeah. Throw a supercharger on, no fuel system.
Yeah, or just stuff like that. Like, well, can you make that work? I've even had somebody drop a vehicle off. This was pretty recent. I had somebody drop a vehicle off for a tune, and I go out to they drop it off out front off of a trailer, and I'm just assuming it's at least can run. I'm going to be able to get it and make it run and get it up in here in the shop so we can check it out. Get in it, crank. I can't hear the fuel pump. It's obviously not starting. Has no fuel pressure. So I call a guy up. Hey, man, does this thing have a kill switch on it somewhere? Like a fuel pump kill switch for security. Like I can't get it to start. And the guy was dead serious. He was like, well, no, the fuel pump doesn't work. I just figured you could tune it.
God.
I mean, and the guy seemed, otherwise a pretty intelligent dude. It's just a pretty big disconnect between, the customer and us, and it is our job to try to educate people on what's going on. That's part of our job, but at the same time, it would be cool if you could do a little bit of your own research before bringing your car into a dyno shop. So.
Yeah. To change gears a little bit, I wanted to ask, of course, the question that everybody wants to know: what power numbers what's the record power number that your dyno has seen, or even if it's not the same, then what's the highest you've ever got out of a car?
So the highest that I've ever seen on this dyno, I think, is like 1,050. Mm-hmm. We don't do a whole lot of like crazy drag racing builds. We're none of our customers are really out there. We've had a couple customers that, like, we did a drag truck a couple years ago and made some pretty insane power. But like I said, we're mostly just doing like street cars, and if we do a drag car, then it's not like your crazy 1,300 horsepower type setups.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that we do like low power cars, but it's just, I don't know, 1,050. To answer the question. The most I've ever seen personally, like in real life in front of me, not in an Instagram video or anything like that, I've seen a couple 1,200 wheel horsepower Supras, in person on the dyno. I see a lot of crazy stuff now, like the Viper guys, claiming like 3,500, 4,000 wheel horsepower. I don't know about all that. I'm sure that they make a lot of power, but I don't know.
They ain't got that much more displacement than, a stroked LS or something, really.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors there too, but I don't know. That all seems. I feel like the number thing is a big result of like social media. It's like a dick measuring contest. I think it was like when I first started getting into this, the number everybody wanted was 900 to 1,000, and then the next year is like 1,000 to 1,200, and then now, anytime I talk to somebody that's wanting, they all want like 1,500 to 2,000 horsepower, and they want to be able to take it to the date night, and they want to be able to take it on vacation, and they want to drive it to work, and it's like, you can do that, but there's a whole lot that goes into that, dude.
Yeah, so. I completely agree. I think the media has brainwashed people into thinking that if you're not making like upwards to 1,000 horsepower, you ain't got nothing worth racing, and it kind of sucks because like getting 1,000 horsepower, I mean that's getting a little wallet there.
Yeah, for me, like as far as an enjoyable, like I'm really big into being able to enjoy a car, just out in a regular scenario. You got to be careful what you say nowadays, but with the EPA and everything, but. Yeah. My cap is like 700 wheel. That's a nice car that you can go out, you can get on a back road. You still got to be really careful. You still got to respect it, but you can still have a ton of fun, and it's not too much. Like really 600 to 700. I kind of wavering more to like the 600 range. It's just a fun car. Now, obviously, if you're out there to beat everybody 60 to 160 or quarter mile, whatever it may be, then probably gonna need more than that to hang with the big dogs or whatever. But that's never really been my thing, man.
Yeah, I agree, and after kind of like, being under that brainwash spell of 1,000 is all 1,000 or nothing, it's like, man, I can't imagine controlling a car at 1,000 horsepower on the street. It's not going to be enjoyable.
No, I have guys too that come in and they're talking like they want that kind of number, and then I'll be like, well, go down this road with me in this car real quick, and it's a 650, 750 wheel horsepower car. You floor it, and they're over there, grabbing all over this stuff, like, oh god, Yeah. So people don't really realize, man. I mean, 1,000 wheel horsepower is dramatic. That's like pushing the blood out of your legs up into your chest type G-forces and stuff, man. People really do not understand.
If you rode at 1,000 horsepower, you should before you kind of argue.
Yeah.
That you might want that.
But yeah, the Instagram thing's crazy. It's like you can post whatever you want on there, and people are. It also has the effect of like. People think that 1,000 horsepower, 1,200 horsepower car is like this turnkey type deal. You just bolt it on and go.
Yeah.
A lot goes into it, man. A lot goes into it, and it's not just a snap your fingers, have 1,000. A lot
goes into 700 horsepower.
Yeah. A lot goes in. He's not wrong. A lot goes into 7 too. A lot goes into anything. If you're just doing heads cam, that's a lot of work too. Especially if you do it right, torque everything, clean everything. But yeah. No, I don't think people quite realize what 1,000 plus wheel horsepower really is all about.
Yeah. I mean, they just, like you said, they see these TikToks and Instagram and YouTube videos, and they're like, man, that's what I want. That's what I gotta have,
Hey guys, daily driving my 2,000 horsepower Supra for the next 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, if the asphalt isn't like over 70 degrees and there's zero moisture on the ground, like you can't even get down in a 1,000 horsepower car unless the conditions are pretty decent. Otherwise, you're going to end up in a ditch or a tree or whatever it may be. So
yeah, you see these, especially like I cling to Race Week a lot because it's just like it just looks like such a fun time. But you see these guys that are making insane power numbers. They spend like an hour at the track switching back over to street mode. Like these guys aren't street driving; they're race cars. Like it's not feasible. Like
yeah, it's really not. I mean, there's a degree to that. That's a big conversation. We could do a whole episode over that too. But. That's a big conversation of what it takes. Like, one of our customers we built a 1,000 wheel horsepower turbo Camaro for him. He drives it like twice a year. You know what I mean? And he's pretty well aware of that. He's like, I don't really get down on it a whole lot. He's like, it's not like anything against us or that. He just knows like it's got a ton of power. He wants to enjoy it without having it in the shop because every time it has to come back to the shop, it's here for a minute, especially with like the way parts and stuff are now. So he really just kind of, when the conditions are right, he gets out and gets down on it, but he's not like beating the snot out of it constantly. If that's what you want, if you want a car that you can beat on constantly, then 1,000 horsepower plus is not the the realm that you need to be in. You need to go lower.
Parts are under too much stress.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The maintenance, the care you need to do to an engine like that. I mean, like even if you do have a 1,200 horsepower motor, if you're driving it regularly, I mean, I'd say it's a good idea to tear it apart every year, make sure everything's okay. You know, stuff sees heat, stuff gets warped. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's a race situation, you definitely want to be taking it apart and checking it as much as you can. Like I saw a video, I think like last year, Jay Meager from Real Street, they do a lot of Supras.
Yeah.
He was going over their schedule for like this car. It's a car he drives a lot, and then he races it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But like he has an entire schedule based on like what the conditions were during race day, et cetera, as to when he like pulls the engine out and checks things out. And he's just literally taking it apart to check things out. He's not even like replacing stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the stuff I'm talking about. That's the whole lot of stuff that goes into having those types of cars. Is like you can't just like, oh well, I put it up for the winter and I'm gonna go start it up at the beginning of the summer and drive it around. Like you're probably gonna need to take that thing in to somebody if you're not capable of doing it yourself, and have it gone over for this next season. Even if it just sat in the garage all winter and you didn't drive it, like there's a lot to it, man.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
It seems like too like. I'm just going back to Craighead. Like even for him, whenever he tore apart my trans, he took it to a shop, did a complete like tear down. Like he washed everything, pressure washed everything. The outside, he didn't even have to outwash the outside of the case, but he did because he cares about his work.
Yeah.
And that's something I can attest to being a customer for however many years. Like every time that I get a build back from you guys or see one on your Facebook or whatever, it's like always really well. Like everything looks clean, everything looks like it's gone through well. And that's just something that I could appreciate from your shop is that you guys really take the time to not cut a corner. Everything, all your T's are crossed and all your I's are dotted whenever I see a build done by you guys.
I appreciate that, man. I mean, obviously we're humans, so we do make mistakes too, but I feel like a lot of the reason that goes on here, because like if you take a look around our shop, we're not like super organized and clean or anything. But the culture here is really like, the most important thing is that it's done correctly. And that we don't have to deal with the headache of it not being done correctly. That really is the most important thing, is that it gets done right. Obviously, people get in a rush, we get in a rush, and one of my guys that works here, he always says, man, haste makes waste, haste makes waste. So that is very true. You can get, and we get in that position. We're not perfect, dude. Like we've definitely been in a position where we need to get a car out the door, for what a customer needs it back, or it's just been here too long, whatever it may be. And, a corner may get cut or something. That does happen, but we strive extremely, extremely hard to make sure that doesn't happen, that we do it right the first time. And, everything's clean, everything's well taken care of, everything's put back the way it was, the wiring harness is back the way General Motors had it in the car. Mm-hmm. And if it's not an OE type situation, then it needs to look OE.
Yeah. So. I do like to, I just remember back to before me and you were like, close before Jordan got here, back before I knew you real well, I was like, man, Matt's got all these shiny cars on his thing. I even told my wife, I think it was snowing whenever I had my cam put in. Yeah. I was like, I've got to clean my car up. I said, I got to go on that MCR Facebook page.
Yeah, for sure. And we I can take a picture and make a dirty car look clean. So we still do that. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is you want it to get returned to the customer in better shape than it was when it came here.
I like the clean cars before they leave. I just enjoy cleaning them, honestly.
Yeah, we 99% of vehicles, unless the customer specifies otherwise, or like it's obviously like a race car with parts or something, it gets washed. So we try to do that. I've heard people like guys in Glasgow and stuff that are in the car scene. Like I think there's this one kid. He's asked me for like 1 million quotes, and I've sent it to him, and he like never responds. He wants to hit me up and ask how much my stuff is, but then whenever it's too much, he wants to talk trash. I think he said like we weren't meticulous or something like that. And that bothered me a lot, because we do. If there's a car back here wrapped in plastic, we wrap up fenders. We're definitely meticulous. We see a ton of cars come from other shops that maybe the customer isn't even aware of it. They just decided they didn't want to go back to that shop for whatever reason, and now they're here. And like, dude, we see the craziest stuff. Yeah. We see cars with melted wiring harnesses. We see parts barely bolted on. We're meticulous here, man. We really try to be, and everybody's human, and everybody makes a mistake here and there. But
I want to come back to that.
Yeah, that's crazy. So,
but before we go to the break, I want to ask you two things. They're nowhere near each other, so we're just gonna have to do a weird transition here.
that's cool.
Before we switch off the business end of things, I want to know, do you have any like nightmarish stories that you want to tell in all your years of business? You know, like what is like just like the worst situation, whether a car blew up, a customer is like just terrible with you. It's like if you don't have to share if you don't want to. But
I can think of one nightmare that Matt had.
You don't have to disclose anything.
I think everyone in here thought, except for me at the time.
The pretty recent one? Is that what you're talking about?
During your wedding.
Oh God, yeah, no. Like I tried to black that situation out. Yeah, I mean, dude, this is a hard business to be in, and there, like I said, there's a big disconnect between us and the customer as far as like knowledge and stuff goes. I've had a lot of weird situations. I've had guys over rev engines, out there on the road course going from like fifth gear to second gear at 120 mile an hour or whatever. And that's pretty obvious. Like we can tear that apart and find that pretty quickly. So that's always an awkward situation. But yeah, what he's referring to is probably
the worst.
Probably the worst situation I've ever dealt with. It was. I'm not going to get too much into it, man.
Okay, yeah,
but I mean, it was like right before my wedding. We had been doing like literally everything we can for this customer. I was here at 1:30 in the morning. 2 nights before my wedding. I was literally here the night before my wedding. Taylor, the fabricator and our lead technician, he stayed here so many countless mornings, dude, and put up with that guy. With him actually here because like he's like, I'm coming up there. I'll be there at 3 in the morning. That was a tough situation, and that customer, yeah, like I said, I'm not gonna get too much into that, but that Jordan's right. That's definitely the hands down out of like the 12 years that I've been working professionally in the automotive industry. I think that's probably the worst situation I've ever dealt with.
Yeah. Okay, well, to change gears into more of hopefully a happier memory, I want to know, of course, you grew up, like you said, in the Fast and Furious import scene. I want to know what that car scene was like back then. Being around the imports, like, that had to have been the time to be alive, man.
Yeah, dude, it was pretty cool. I was hoping you would touch on that because I was thinking about this the other night. It was definitely a different time. And it wasn't like you didn't have like this whole crazy like 1,000 horsepower thing going on where everybody had to be. And people actually race too. Like I've noticed now, I haven't gone to a car meet in forever. You know what I mean? I kind of hang out in the shadows. Jordan goes to a lot of them, but I go to a couple major events a year. But the thing I've noticed here lately is like people really like to talk smack, but they don't actually want to race. Like back in my day, like I would go out in a 200 wheel horsepower Honda, gut it out, and like roll up on some dude in a big block Malibu or whatever and be like, let's run him, dude. And like, even if I got smoked, it was still great. Like, man, that guy only, that 500, 600 horsepower Malibu only beat me by 5 cars, dude. He only got me by a bus length, Like, it was pretty cool. Now people are like scared that video is going to get posted on Instagram and their car getting gapped.
How it is now.
Yeah, no, it was different. Like locally in Glasgow in the Bowling Green area, Bowling Green had a little bit bigger scene, obviously, it's a bigger city.
Just like that tuner car kind of scene?
Yeah, there was definitely a tuner car scene. Like, I had a little gang growing up,
really?
Like of dudes that all had, like, Eclipses or Integras, whatever it was. Just little 4-cylinder cars or 4-cylinder turbo cars. And, just super cool vibe, man. Everybody was really chill about it. It was a cool time. And then nationally, like, that scene was massive, dude.
Oh, yeah.
And the shows were parties. Like, I remember going to Nopi Nationals when I was, like, 16, 17 years old. And just being absolutely blown away. Like being a kid from Glasgow, you go out and you see a few cars at AutoZone or whatever. You're like, yeah, this is cool. It's a big deal. And then we go to Nopi Nationals, and I don't even know how many people were there. At that age and at that time, it seemed like 100,000 people there. But
yeah,
it was just all the cars and everybody was just really cool. There was no like beef or anything like that. It was a different time compared to what you got going on now. Which I'm not saying what goes on now is bad at all. There's still some really cool stuff going on in the modern car scene, but it was definitely different.
Yeah. You don't see and the guys that still have those tuner cars from back in the day, like, oh my God, they have a jewel. Like, like some, like you see like a Mark IV Supra, they're like unaffordable. Yeah. I mean, like same thing with the R34s, like everything that you grew up around, like, God, it's so rare now. Like everybody holds on to them. R7, yeah.
Well, we were just talking the other day, like when I was 18, I looked at a twin turbo, factory twin turbo RX-7 and really wanted it and just didn't come together. But I think at the time it was like 13.5
Oh my god.
for that car, and it had under 100,000 miles on it. And that was like the going price,
Yeah.
like 13 to 16, like 13 if it had the rotary issues, and 16 if it didn't have the rotary issues yet. So yeah,
I'd be kicking myself if that was me.
yeah, for sure now,
God.
because like I don't even know how much they are now. Like what, like 40 grand
Yeah.
for a nice one.
That's a good chunk of change.
Well, that's because the guys that guys my age that were super into that stuff, they're
Don't want to let go.
we're of the age now where whatever you can make a little extra money or whatever it is and go buy one. And so the prices have shot. I mean, inflation, of course, too. You guys, we're all living in the same world. Inflation's pretty crazy. So.
And the people that have those cars probably don't want to let go of them either,
Yeah, no. Anybody that's got a nice one, like they're not coming off of it for
Yeah.
anything other than what it's absolutely worth or
Oh,
what
yeah.
they think it's worth. So.
You never see them get knocked down, especially JDM cars.
Yeah, like even Integra Type R's, which that was
Yeah, man.
Integra Type R's were like really close to my heart. I loved those cars. I never was able to buy like a real Type R as a kid, but just because they've always been kind of more expensive, and if they weren't more expensive, they're hard to find. I think now I think those are in the 30 or 40 range now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they are. I've looked.
So that's crazy to me because that's just like a Civic.
Yeah.
So.
Pretty much.
Before we throw it to the break, I want Matt, any kind of like availability you have as far as tuning, if you want to plug anything before we get into the other half of the episode, an email that they can shoot you at for dyno tuning, any of that good stuff.
Yeah, so the best way to to get a hold of me for absolutely anything, period, is to email us at matt@mcrtuning.com. I know it's nice to have a phone conversation. You shoot me an email, shoot me a phone number, and we'll go over stuff. But to initially make contact, the easiest, best way to get on our schedule is to email me. I've got a lot going on other than just this shop. I have a couple other ventures I'm involved in. I'm here every day, 5 days a week, but I still got a lot going on, and it's whenever you're doing this many cars with the workforce that we have, which currently is me and 2 other dudes, it gets a little crazy. So we may not answer the phone every single time. So yeah, matt@mcrtuning.com, best way to get a hold of me.
Sweet. All right, we'll throw it to a quick break, and we will be back with Matt for some questions about our local car scene. We're back. All right, guys. So as promised, Matt, I want to know your opinion about our local Glasgow car scene, which you've touched on a couple times in the episode. But it seems like, I'm just going to say, it seems like a lot of local guys our age, they just don't want
come here.
Yeah.
Don't gravitate towards this area.
They don't want anything to do with you, even though you're 20 minutes away and
Yeah.
have friends that are associated directly with you. We could probably talk you into helping them out some, but yet they don't want anything to do. What have you done to these people, man?
So I have no idea. There's a couple of dudes that I know you're directly referring to that I don't think I've ever even met in person. I may have had a Facebook conversation with them, and one in particular I know messaged me 10 different times for quotes on 2 different vehicles that we did send, but apparently they were, I don't know, either my price offended him or maybe my email address offended him. I've never met the kid, so. But I kind of want to touch on 3 points with that. So the first thing that you've got going on, one, early on, I had a really good customer who's kind of from the area. I was complaining to him about that. We had been open a couple weeks. And I was like, man, I'm just getting a really weird local response. And he was like, man, that's how it goes. He's like, you can't be a hero in your hometown.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm not trying to be a hero. He's like, yeah, but what I mean by that is people, they look for that, exclusivity of going outside of town. For a while there,
Yeah.
there was a shop up in Louisville that everybody wanted to go to. That was the hot thing. You got to go up to that shop in Louisville. There's a couple places down in Nashville, I'm pretty sure, out of business now. Everybody wanted to go to them. As far as my business now locally, I have a lot of local business. Whole lot of local business, and then surrounding areas. We get people from northern Kentucky, western Kentucky, eastern Kentucky, Tennessee. Pretty local areas. But as far as Glasgow goes, the young kid car scene, you're right. They don't like me for some reason. I don't know why they don't like me. Don't care either. But,
Yeah.
that's cool. I guess I don't really know how to answer that question. I guess maybe they just. They want that more exclusive feeling of having to travel somewhere to get their car.
Maybe they enjoy the travel too,
And maybe they enjoy that aspect. I really don't know.
Yeah, but
I've thought about it a lot, and I couldn't tell you.
It's just like, you know, with us being in kind of, I mean, even going back to like COVID, like it was so important to support your local business, your local small business. You have here, you're big into motorsports, you have an LS, and you don't want to come support this small business. You know, it just raises all kinds of questions like, why, what, how did he hurt you?
I don't think it has anything to do with being like local to the Glasgow car scene, dude, because our biggest customer base comes from northern Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, Ohio. We even get people from Georgia. I've had cars out here from like Iowa and California even, you know what I mean? Like, we get cars from a lot of different places, but the fact that I have people coming from Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, all the way down here when I know damn well, you know, I don't even have to look it up on the internet. I know what these shops are already. They're right next to you. You know, that's your local shop too. They want to come down here. So I think it really just comes back to that people don't think that like their local area is capable of having high end tuning. You know,
because you know I kind of notice with kids our age too. It's like, man, I just want to get out of my hometown. Maybe it's kind of like that. You know, they just don't want to be in the area.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like 10 years older than y'all, so I still even see it with like my age range. Like literally, like. There's no way.
Why are you living in Glasgow? I mean, I hear that stuff all the time. Like, I like it here.
It's kind of sparse right now for out of town cars, but like typically there's at least 5 cars in here from Indiana or Illinois.
Hey, that car's.
Yeah, that's from Chicago. There's a car up on the rack from Chicago. Yeah. So, and there's a lot of really really good builders and tuners in that area.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, he's down here. I think, like I said, I don't think it has anything to do with it being just the Glasgow car scene. I just think people don't think they can get what they're looking for near them for some reason. So
it's crazy because I'm sure that guy that lives in Chicago wishes he didn't have to drive his car all the way down here.
He didn't have to drive it down here. That guy's got some jack. He had that thing. Yeah, he had that thing sent down here, and it'll get sent back up when it's done. But yeah, I do have guys that drive 6-7 hours to get here. We had a customer come from. Where did that kid come from?
You talking about
Yeah, he was Chicago area too.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is kind of funny. I'll just tell this story. Sorry, dude, if you're watching this, probably not. But if you are, I'm sorry. We did heads cam, bolt-ons. It was 5th gen Camaro. He drove it around for like 4 or 5 months and started breaking up on him really bad. And so I sent him a list of things to check out before he brings his car down here, right? Mm-hmm. So he says, I checked everything you told me to check. So they put it on the back of this big old ginormous, way too big for the car trailer, and pull it down here with like an F350 that's jacked up on 40s.
And diesel prices at the time were like
from Chicago?
Stupid.
Yeah. And diesel prices were crazy, bro. So they get down here, pull this thing off the trailer. We pulled it in over there at that door, coming into the shop. And it was either me or Jordan 1. I think it was Jordan. Grabs a hold of a plug wire, and it's literally like melted in half. And I told this dude, check your plug wire.
The first thing I checked, and it was just gone.
Yeah, I think it had been chilling on one of the headers. For some reason, you know, whatever happened and melted in half. So that's definitely a bad situation to drive 6 hours for that. So
I'm kind of glad he did for other reasons.
Oh
yeah.
Sorry, dude. Your girlfriend was she was a good looking gal.
I wasn't gonna mention that. Okay.
But I just think it's crazy because going back to like, you know, you talking about the notoriety thing, like you do these cars that are way out of town. Not only that, but I also want to hit, like, you guys have a great relationship with BTR. Like,
yeah, I love
Texas Speed. You know, you've got people at Texas Speed. Like, you've got the connections for these people, but they don't utilize it. They could get these discounts on parts and all this stuff, but I don't know. I just can't wrap my head around that whole aspect, you know. And I also want to get your kind of opinion on what state is our car scene at. Like, I know you don't go to car meets and stuff, but, you know.
I keep up with it. I got my ear to the streets, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there. Brian Kimball said it's kind of at a slow, low point. He said it's like probably the lowest point he's seen in a while. You know, what is your opinion on that?
I think that's definitely true. You know, Brian's way more active. I know Brian Kimball too. Shout out Kimball. Love you, man. But I think he came to PRI with us this year. We had a great time with him. But yeah, he's not wrong. It's definitely at its lowest. I think a lot of that's a reflection of the current economy. You know, gas prices are crazy high. Inflation's crazy high. People really don't have the extra money to go out and like waste a bunch of gas all day in a parking lot or whatever it may be. I think that has a factor into it. I think a lot of like the social pressure, you know, you're starting to see social media become way more integrated into people's lives. Like, you know, before if you took your car out and something happened or whatever it may be, you know, like you just had to deal with it, you know, deal with your buddies making fun of you. Now it's like, oh, okay, fifth gen Camaro pulls into Cars and Coffee and Rod flies out of oil pan. That's a video that gets recirculated on the internet and may go viral, you know.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's like a big
I agree.
contributing factor to people getting out too.
I agree with that so much because we have a friend that has a LSA G8 and it's like just refuses to run it at all. And it's like, I don't know if he's afraid of like you said, just getting a video of getting beat. Like, I mean, it's an LSA. I mean, it's not nothing to laugh at. You know, like you said, 600 wheel is
Yeah, there's
nothing.
always going to be somebody faster than you.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people
Yeah.
have a hard time accepting that.
I feel like being self-conscious about drag racing if you've never done it before. It's nothing really to be pressured about. You know, you're just learning.
Yeah, it's not just the car scene. Everything, like every scene, period, is in a weird spot right now. As far as like another reason for the decline goes, it's just a lot of bad attitudes in the car
True.
scene right now, dude. There's a
Yeah.
lot of really just negative, like, you know, if we go out to an event or something, like, you know, we're going to get a lot of positive praise, but there's always like that group of guys that are throwing shade at you or whatever. And it's just a negative environment to be around. I think that turns a lot of people off too. Dude, I know guys that have like super badass cars that everyone would love to see at Cars and Coffee, and they don't get them out. Just because they don't want to deal with the quote-unquote riff-raff, you know, and
Yeah.
people doing burnouts and donuts
Yeah.
and stuff. It's dude, the slideshow stuff's crazy. It's just
That's
a different,
crazy.
it's a different
yeah.
world, man. It's not the same car scene I grew up in, that's for sure.
Yeah. Before we wrap it up, I do, you know, I want to continue on that point. Like the camaraderie your day compared to how it is now. For example, like we have been to meets where people got around and talked to people that they didn't know, but it seems like there's a few meets where it's like literally
Cliquey.
people just stay in their own niches. Like they stay by their buddies with their cars, and it's like you've got all these groups of people, but there's no crossover. Nobody's going to go say, "Hey guys, what do you guys have? What do you guys have?" Like, what was it like back in your day? Like, was there camaraderie? Like, was it so hard to come by?
Yeah, there wasn't like the big, like, I remember, you know, being a Honda kid, even in my hometown, or you know, we'd go to like E-Town or Nashville or Louisville, go up to like 502 Underground. That was a big thing up in Louisville, was 502 Underground. It was like
Yeah.
a big race scene or whatever up there. And there was no like Camaro guys hanging out with Camaro guys and Honda guys hanging out with Honda guys and all this, that, and the other. Like everybody was just there. Everybody was there for the passion of cars. Everybody was there for the passion of racing. And there wasn't like this cliquey type stuff you see now. Like I see it really bad with certain LS models, like G8 guys, dude. Like, no hate on anybody that's got a G8, but they all think that that's like some kind of like super rare, magical, very different
It
car.
could be a Ute, and it's still a Camaro.
It's a
really.
four-door Camaro, bro. Like, I have
Four.
guys that call up here with G8s and be like, "Do you tune a lot of G8s?" Like, well, you know, no, we don't tune a whole lot of G8s. Like, maybe, you know, whole 6 years we've been open, maybe 30 or 40, right? But they all think that like they're different just because it's like a Pontiac G8, and so they kind of all click together instead of like going out and learning about all this other stuff. But no, like back when I was a younger kid and in the car scene and going around, like, no, we would talk to Camaro guys and race Camaro guys. We'd talk to Mustang guys and race Mustang guys. And everybody just kind of shared information. And I even had people that would be like, you know, we would race, like I'd race a Mustang in my turbo Honda and, you know, win or get close to winning, whatever it was. They'd still be really impressed and be like, man, tell me about this. I had no clue you could go that fast with a 1.8 liter engine. Like, and they really were interested. Now I do not see that. It's like, bruh, you got a 1.8 Volkswagen with a big turbo. That's so stupid. Like, why didn't you buy a Mustang? You could have done bolt-ons and a tune and been faster than what you've done with 10 grand in this car. It's like, maybe you didn't want a Mustang.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, I see that too. Like a lot of times, man. If I'm street racing and I get gapped and that dude pulls off to a gas station, you know, like talk, I'm not gonna fly by. I'm gonna stop and be like, "Hey, man, what you got going on?"
Yeah,
like,
I want to know what's going on here, bro.
Why did I get that gap?
That was sick. Yeah. No, you don't see that anymore. And I don't know why.
People are just stuck up.
There's a
seems
lot
like.
of negativity in the car scene
I like
right
the
now.
mix.
For sure.
I think it's fun to
Yeah.
see different builds.
It was really nice at the last car meet we went to. Like just a bunch of random
Yeah.
kids, like younger than us, showed up in like
Hondas
NA
and-
Hondas, and we were
yeah.
like, dude, you know, like they're you
I
know,
like them
liking
too.
our
That SI
Camaros.
was pretty clean.
Yeah, dude. Like I remember the first like car that I put together. Like I had like a muffler pipe cold air intake that I made out of like some old exhaust pipe. No shit. And like I had painted the valve cover red, and like, you know, these older guys would be hanging out at the spots. Like, you know, back in the day in Glasgow, we had like the strip.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you would drive around like McDonald's, what used to be Blockbuster. I think it's O'Reilly's now. Big O Tire,
Yeah.
like that little strip. You drive through there, and everybody would hang out, and it was mostly like Camaros, Mustangs, older muscle cars, and street bikes and stuff like that. And some people would come from out of town with other stuff, but they always like were cool about it. You know, like I'd pull up with my little slow Honda and pop the hood with my painted valve cover and my exhaust pipe intake and be like, "Yeah, man, how old are you? You know, what got you into this?" And just really wanting to know like what was going on with my car, even though it was obviously a shit box with a painted valve cover and a
Yeah.
exhaust intake. You definitely don't see that anymore. You see a lot of like turning the nose up. Some kid pulls up in a shit box that he's poured his heart and soul into, and it's like, well, it's not a 2022 GT500 with a Lund tune and a pulley and all this. I don't care to look at it or know about it. Like, you're doing yourself a disservice there if you're in the car scene and that's your mentality, because there's a lot you're missing out on, like experience-wise, of just like learning what that and feeling what that passion about cars is. Because whether it's a kid with $500 and a Honda Civic, or a grown-ass man with, or a kid with a dad with like a $250,000 race car, like that same passion is still there, and there's still a lesson to be learned in between those two things.
Yeah.
I think that's just like what Brian Kimball said the other day
What's that?
about, you know, he started out poor, you know, and
Oh, yeah.
you know, it just
Start
kind of
from
goes
the
back
bottom.
to, you know, it don't really matter how much money you got. That's not the point of it.
I'd rather see, like you said, I'd rather see a build that somebody's put their heart and soul into than if somebody pulled up in something brand new. I'm like, all right, whatever. You know, I know what's going on there. I don't know what's going on in this dude's like homemade build here. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like for me, like that kind of stuff is way more interesting. And I feel like it is still for a lot of people too, but not the majority. Like if I go out to say LS Fest and go to the parking lots afterwards, like, and you know, there's all the C6Zs and stuff, like C7Zs, whatever it is, with like the YSIs and the huge blowers and nitrous bottles. Like that's really cool. But what like really gets me going is like that pickup truck. Like that
Yes, sir.
just so as an example, a dude that works here has got like this S10 that he daily drives. It's got like holes and rust and stuff on it, scratches, and he like kicks it all the time. Like that truck sitting over in a corner, I'm like, I want to know about that thing because it's over there chopping. I heard it whining when it came in. Like there's something going on there, and that's way cooler. That's way cooler than the dude that paid a shop $80,000 to put a YSI and a nitrous kit and, you know, RPM transmission and rear diff in his car. That's great. That's awesome. I'm glad you can afford that, and that's really cool. That's obviously the business I'm in. But for me, it's that little sleeper deal over there in the corner that nobody's paying attention to. Those are the fun cars. So
I 1,000,000% agree.
yeah.
Well, Matt, it has been awesome having you on. If you ever want to come back on, our doors are wide open.
Yeah, just hit me up, man. I know there's all kinds of topics I could go on about all day. So.
But, yeah, great guest, great episode. Guys, if you enjoyed the episode, if you want any kind of diamond tuning or anything at all, hit Matt up.
Matt at MCRtuning.com.
Hit him up. But, yeah, we'll catch you guys in the next one.